All right, this week, the name on the marquee has got to be Nathan Diaz, who this past weekend on Saturday, September 10th at UFC 279 at the T-Mobile Arena in Paris, Nevada, he defeated Tony Ferguson by submission via guillotine choke at 2 minutes, 52 seconds of round number 4. What's so funny?
Paris, Nevada? What'd you have?
That's what it says on Wikipedia. It's in Las Vegas, goddammit. It's true, you're right. I said that, I was like, oh, shit. All right, the official time was 2:52 of round number 4. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. Man, where do you begin with this bout, with this whole event? But let's try to zoom in and talk about the main event between Nate Diaz and Tony Ferguson. What was your takeaways?
Yeah, we already gave kind of our live reaction to all the nonsense and the shuffling and all that when we did the last-minute preview for the 3 reshuffled fights on Saturday. So if you want our take there, feel free to pop over to that video. But in terms of this fight, I mean, this thing was awesome. We all came into this past weekend thinking we were going to see Nate Diaz get sacrificed in front of the world and destroyed on his way out the door. And instead, he gets a showcase across from a fellow legend in Tony Ferguson. We get more Nate Diaz antics to remember, like his mid-round break when, for a second, like we weren't sure if he was quitting or like what the hell was happening. His beautiful, perfect technique sidekick at the horn when he's just leaning on the cage and then throws the sidekick to nobody when the horn sounds. It was incredible. And we get a vintage Nate Diaz performance where his boxing just started to overwhelm his opponent. And then to top it all off, we get the absolutely vintage Nate Diaz finish with the flex and all at 2:09 of the 4th round of all times. I know the official time was 2:08, but fuck that and fuck that timekeeper. The screenshots tell me it was 2:09. Have some awareness, bro, and just fucking tell him it was 2:09. I don't need to hear 2:08. But, yeah, the whole thing was awesome. It's exactly what I hoped it could be for Nate, and frankly, what it told us is that Nate still has game, which I've always said. He is not easy to fight, no matter how old he's getting here. He's not easy, and I think it also told us that Tony may not have game left. I think that's easily the worst we've seen Tony look in this whole run. He was in there with killers previously, so it was a little hard to evaluate some of them. He was battling. He had his moments, like against Chandler. He had that first round, but on this night, he was in there with an older Nate Diaz, who's a bit slower these days, as much as I still love him. And Tony looked ungodly slow. I mean, everything he did looked sloppy and slow. And I know that a lot of that is probably because he's so unorthodox. And when you're unorthodox and fast, you look really cool. And when you're unorthodox and you lose a step, you start to look really sloppy. So I'm sure that plays into it, but I just didn't think he looked good here. And it's hard to fight Nate. Like I always say this, unless you're a wrestler, it is no easy task to fight Nate Diaz because your strikes are not going to deter him. He's going to keep coming at you. He's going to find his timing on his combos. Before you know it, you're catching 1-2s in your face, and you're like, hold on a second, what's happening here? Like, it's a difficult fight, and that's exactly what happened here. Tony he kind of stuck to the same plan throughout. It wasn't working. He couldn't throw Nate off, especially as we got past the earlier rounds. And then he gets desperate, and he shoots, and that's the end of that. And credit to Nate. He snatched that choke up so beautifully. Tony actually got his head out right away. Like, his head was high. And Nate went up and readjusted it in 1 second and locked that thing in tight. So it was awesome. It was a great finish for Nate. Leaves you probably thinking we're done seeing any big moments from Tony Ferguson at this point. Obviously, he wants to continue, as he said. He said we're back, whatever the fuck that means. I'm not sure how he defines being back. But the ending for Nate was awesome. I even loved the post-fight interview in that he kind of went out on good terms with the UFC. And I actually have a suspicion that we will see Nate Diaz in the UFC again down the road at some point.
Omar, let's bring you into the fold here. What was your reaction to the main event, to the event as a whole, and to Nate walking away with this W, this sort of a vintage Nate Diaz performance, as Mark alluded to?
Yeah, so I may be in the minority. I had fun watching the fight. It was fun to watch, but like I wasn't impressed with either guy. Like they both didn't look particularly great. We gave, so many people gave Rockhold shit for being tired not a month ago. And Nate Diaz did the same thing like 4 times, and we're like praising him for it and calling him a gangster for it.
I didn't think he was tired. I thought his legs were fucked up.
He did it throughout the whole fight. I mean, whatever he did it for, it's like all antics and stuff. And for me, there wasn't enough going on. They got to the point at some point where they didn't come forward all the time, where they sort of try to lollygag their way, where the referees on a regular basis don't have to goad the fighters to start fighting again. That generally seems to now only happen in Nate Diaz or Nick Diaz fights. And they didn't look great. They both looked slow. You're absolutely right. Tony Ferguson looked, to be fair, he looked awful, bro. He looked really bad. He looked so bad, in fact, that Nate Diaz walked out of there fucking immaculate. Immaculate. There wasn't a scratch on him.
Other than his leg, which is probably pretty bruised up, pretty fucked up.
I could breathe on Nate Diaz's eye, and that shit'll split open. Ferguson was in there.
Bleed. I really can't.
Ferguson was in there for how many rounds and did nothing to Nate Diaz's face? I think that's absolutely madness. I would have never, in a million years, I thought that would have been the easiest prop bet of all things. Is Nate Diaz walking out of there with a cut, and you would have lost all of your money, every bit of it. It was a weird fight, to be really honest, because all the things we thought could potentially happen in Tony's favor never even tried to occur. Nate Diaz did what Nate Diaz does, but only frankly because he was allowed to do it. When guys can overpower Nate Diaz, when guys are better technically than Nate Diaz, when guys can wrestle, like Mark said, his game just isn't allowed. And Tony Ferguson made it really easy for Nate Diaz to just do his thing. But they both look tired. They both look like they were just older at this point.
Yeah.
I've been saying it for years that Nate Diaz just doesn't seem motivated to really fight the way he used to. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it is. He's just older now at this point. But whatever the case is, they just didn't look great. I am super fucking glad that wasn't Chimaev. There's a part of me that's like, that whole rolling nonsense that he did with Kevin Holland, and we'll get to that, but that whole ground sequence, maybe that would have went different if it was Nate Diaz, for sure. But overall, the overpowering aspect of Chimaev, I think, is terrifying against somebody who's never really seemed quote unquote strong in Nate Diaz, right? Volume, cardio, that kind of machine, but never like somebody to overpower somebody. And Chimaev,
I mean, it would have been the mismatch of the century.
Yeah,
it wouldn't have been good.
Probably wouldn't have been great.
It wouldn't have been good. Wouldn't have been good. Yeah, I mean, I was proved wrong. I think I said last week that we were not going to see Nate Diaz pulling those antics because Tony Ferguson does not present that level of danger that Leon Edwards presents as a striker. But he did it because, honestly, his leg was getting chewed up. And all of a sudden we see him walking away, acting like at one moment I really thought he was literally quitting.
It looked like it in that second because he shook his head no when the ref.
Yeah, and when he shook his head, he was like that. I thought he was waving it off. I thought he was like, "That's it, dude, fuck this, I'm done."
Hard. Can you imagine if that's how Nate's UFC career ended? Him walking away and quitting,
just quitting in a fight.
Stopped. I was like, no.
And even if thinking back to somebody like Kutilaba, like, what if the ref was like, "Okay, that's it."
Dude, I thought that too. I thought the same shit. I was like, my God, I can't believe he just shook his head like that because that ref easily could have been confused.
In a moment, the ref could have been like, okay, fine. Like the moment a fighter says like no mas, like that could be it.
It's a great point.
So, but hey, was it Goddard? I think it was Goddard.
I think it was Goddard. No,
it was Goddard, right? I think it was
Goddard.
Goddard.
Goddard bit his tongue for like that one moment, and maybe, I mean, who knows, man? Who knows? Maybe Nate was fucking quitting in that moment, but because Goddard wasn't stepping in, Nate was like, "All right, fuck it. I guess I'll throw a punch again, and we'll keep going."
He jumped right back at Tony after that little bullshit. I think he just wanted to break for his leg. He wanted to walk it off, and that's exactly what he got to do. Tony let him fucking walk it off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I thought Tony looked okay in moments. Like he was obviously his leg kicks were pretty effective. I thought if he threw a few more, he could have won the fight because I mean Nate's leg was getting bad.
The leg kicks were great.
Tony's
I don't know
leg.
why the fuck Tony's corner was telling him to take Nate down. I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah.
And telling him Tony was doing so many spinning attacks and showing his back, and they're like yelling at him not to turn his back, and all of a sudden they're like, take him down, and we're all like, why? You didn't watch the McGregor fight? You didn't see what happened? It's the same shit.
Tony turned his back about 20 times. It was weird.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
I gotta say we got happy Tony Ferguson for the first time that I could remember. Like the whole week, he wasn't like intense, and even going into the fight, even like in the octagon, he was like happy. He wanted to like shake Nate's hand. I wanted to see a little bit more of like the zombie Tony.
Yeah,
but hey,
I mean, at least in the cage.
Some of these guys, who are winners for a long time, right? There's so much pressure on them to keep being that guy, and part of that is what makes them so intense during their runs. And then when they start to lose, that pressure is gone, and they don't have to be that guy anymore. And it's almost like they don't feel the weight, so they appear more lighthearted. And I feel like that's kind of what Tony's deal is right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. That probably is right.
Tony's also gone through a bunch of changes in the last few years, and nothing's really seemed to have been consistent since the Gaethje fight, right? Like, he trains with Eddie Bravo, but Eddie Bravo's not his corner anymore. Eddie Bravo felt super responsible to some extent about what happened in that fight and how he cornered him, and he should never have been there and all this other stuff. And so now he's, Tony's been jumping from team to team. At one point, he didn't have a team. He wasn't sparring. He wasn't, training with a camp. He was kind of, kicking his fucking metal in his backyard or whatever the hell Tony does in his backyard. And it just seemed like there was a lot of inconsistencies after that Gaethje fight. And it seemed to be a real detriment. It's like the decline, the rate of decline since that Gaethje fight, from that Gaethje fight on, has been astronomical. Like I can't think off the top of my head anybody
concerning looking one.
Yeah, for sure. And at that point, to be fair, we didn't know if that was, is Tony lost it or was Gaethje just that fucking good? And it's not to take anything away from Gaethje, but it very well may have been the beginning of the end of Tony Ferguson before we realized it.
Yeah, it was very hard to tell because what was it? It was literally Gaethje, then Dariush, then Oliveira, then Chandler. Was that the order? But either way, it's like 4 killers. And then he gives you that hope against Chandler in round 1. And this is the first time. And again, I'm not even in agreement with you that I thought Nate looked that bad. I thought Nate looked like Nate. Like Nate fought the way Nate fights. He kind of chills. He lets the fight happen. He lets you get tired of punching him because he knows he's not going anywhere. He starts to get his timing down. Like he kind of fights that way. Like it's not like he goes for it out of the gate necessarily. He's in your face, but he's in your face to kind of just get his reads and pitter patter you and that kind of thing. So I didn't think he looked bad. I thought he looked exactly like. So when I picked Nate to win last week, obviously I in the end I was like, I think it's more likely he gets cut. But I said if he doesn't get cut, he wins. That's pretty much how I envisioned it happening. Not with the tap, with it going all the way to the cards.
Sure.
But I thought it would look kind of like how that looked. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
But so again, not that it was because Tony lost to Nate. I just thought he looked way, way worse, regardless of opponent. Like his movements, his reactions, everything, I thought looked like they fell off a cliff in this fight.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where these two guys are going to go from here. We know that Nate Diaz, his UFC contract is over. Mark, where do you think Nate goes from here? You think he boxes? You think he joins another MMA organization?
He certainly sounds like he's planning to box. He was saying how he's going to go take over another sport, so on and so on. My guess is he is really hoping that Jake Paul beats Anderson Silva, because if he does, I think we absolutely get Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. If Jake Paul does not beat Anderson Silva, and I don't think he will, I hope he won't, then I have no fucking idea. I really don't know what Nate's backup plan would be if there's no Jake Paul fight. I'm interested. I'll watch whatever this man is about to do, but I don't even have a theory of what else it would be besides Jake Paul.
Omar, what do you think is next for Nate Diaz?
Since we're in the middle of the conversation, I will.
Don't say bare knuckle.
Of...
Don't do it. I know you're a bare knuckle guy. Don't say bare knuckle.
He can't fight bare knuckle. He'd lose every fight in a minute. One knuckle to the head, he'd be dripping.
I will share a little of the sphere, and we'll break a little early here. The president of BKFC wants him.
Of course he does. Of course he does.
They're all going to. I'm sure Coker's going to try. I'm sure PFL's going to try. It's Nate fucking Diaz.
Who do you think? Who do you think they want? Who do you think BKFC wants him for, though? What is the purpose? The immediate purpose.
Mike Perry?
Mike fucking Perry.
Oh,
Tell me, and your reaction, Mark, right there, before I even said any of that was, I'm interested. I'll see whatever he does. Is exactly why BKFC will take whatever it is the UFC just paid him. UFC just paid him $1 million for that pay-per-view, probably plus pay-per-view points, I would imagine at this point. He's probably one of the rare exceptions of non-champion pay-per-view point owners. So I would imagine the BKFC is ready to drop a huge fucking dime for people who don't watch BKFC but will watch Nate Diaz.
That's me.
And that's a great fight.
Nothing Nate Diaz could do in combat that I wouldn't watch. Nothing.
He's also doing his new Real Fight promotion.
Right.
Which is his new I think it's boxing. I don't think it's MMA. I can't
I read that it's all three. I read that it's MMA, boxing, and Muay Thai.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit. Dope. Okay.
But I personally don't think his career ends without the Conor trilogy being completed. I really don't. I think.
Here's a question. Do you think the Conor trilogy happens in the UFC or outside of the UFC?
100%
in the UFC.
You think so?
100%.
I think. What if it was like a boxing fight, a boxing match between the two?
I guess that's possible.
What if it was bare knuckle?
I don't. Oh, God, no. Nate can't. How would Nate fight bare knuckle? Do they not stop fights for cuts in bare knuckle?
Hold up.
He can never do it.
If you told me Conor and Nate Diaz were about to bare knuckle fight, like if it was fucking kickboxer or something, hell yes. Sign me up for that travesty right there. That is amazing. That's a once in a lifetime experience. I will take that.
I think Conor's power might be even more problematic in bare knuckle.
Yeah.
He'd probably break his hand twice as quick, though.
Well, that's valid.
Okay, let's shift gears here. Let's talk about Tony Ferguson for a second. We're all unanimous here thinking that Tony, he has looked better. We think his best days are definitely behind him, as much as we love him. Omar, what do you think? You think he stays at 170? You think he should go back down to 155? What do you think?
Man, I'm kind of good on Tony Ferguson at this point, to be honest.
You think you'd like to see him step away?
And I've said this every time we've had to talk about this man for the last 2 years, whatever. It's the performances that have me concerned because he looks terrible. He looks really bad, and he's taken arguably more damage in the last 2 years than he has in his entire career put together. And it doesn't bode well. It doesn't look like it's getting any better. It doesn't look like he's improving or figuring out the thing. It looks like it's getting worse, in fact. And I don't have any interest in watching Tony Ferguson get beat continuously like that. There's a meme out there where you've got the Ninja Turtles surrounding a fucked up Splinter on the ground. And it's like all of us from like 2010 watching Tony Ferguson now having lost like 4 or 5 in a row. And it's super sad. And I don't want it. I can't contribute to it anymore. So I don't want it.
Mark?
I don't see any scenario where the UFC cuts Tony Ferguson. I don't know how many fights are left on his contract. I'm sure if it was over or if there was only one left, we would have heard about it by now. So I'm assuming there's at least 2. I'm sure we could find that. I should have looked that up. But I think he'll fight again. He doesn't seem like he has any intention of walking away. Whatever weight class he's at, whether it's lightweight or welterweight, if it's me, he's fighting a fellow veteran and someone who is not near the rankings. So I'll give you a name for each. If it's welterweight, I'd put him in there with someone like a Tim Means. If it's lightweight, I'd throw him in there with like a Jim Miller. People along those lines are where I want to see him. And if he lost to a Jim Miller or a Tim Means, as talented as they are, these guys are not on the level where Tony Ferguson was a few years ago. If he lost to one of those guys, the conversation changes even more.
Yeah, that fight scares the shit out of me, to be honest. The Tim Means fight for him, I don't know. It just thinking about it now and the way that he's been fighting, I think he gets absolutely worked, and I hate that fight right now. Like, I want to throw him a softball. I'm at a point right now where I want this to become a wiffle ball game, and like I want to give him somebody like Alex Morono, who I know is not going to beat the ever living shit out of him.
The fight. The trick is Tony has to say yes. Like, you can't be like, Tony, here's this debuting fighter we're going to put you with so you win. He's going to be like, absolutely not.
Right.
But Alex Morono could say yes to. I don't think Morono is. You think Morono is much easier than Tim Means? I don't think that's terribly dissimilar.
I just don't want to go in there against somebody.
Easier. He's not as violent, in my opinion.
That's fair.
Like
okay.
Tim Means will fuck this man up.
Well, but Morono and Means, I think Mark picked two guys who don't have, put your lights out power.
I disagree.
Other guys do.
Tim Means will elbow your fucking face off.
Tim Means is more of an accumulative KO artist, though, than a one-shot KO artist.
And right now, I 100% believe that Tim Means will volume the shit out of Tony Ferguson. This is exactly my point. I don't like
to put him against like a wrestler. I feel like you still have to put him in a fight where he can be entertaining. Like, I don't want to say like give him. I don't know. I'm trying to fucking look through this list.
Like a guy who's up and coming, like an Ian Gary at 170.
God,
like Ian Gary's nowhere near the top 15 yet, right?
That would be.
Bro, he's nowhere near the top 25 right now.
No, he's nowhere near it. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But Ian Gary's a young guy who has a lot of pop, man. I think he would probably light Ferguson up at this point.
Dude, you know what would actually be a cool fight too? Tony and Gunner.
Oh yeah, sure. Let Tony just get out grappled for once, and not his head knocked off.
Yeah, and I'd rather not see Tony get worked by an up and comer because, like, how does that help anybody at this point? It just that would just be even sadder to watch.
Tony versus Ian Gary doesn't feel right to me.
Okay,
I don't know.
In the interest of time, let's move on, gentlemen.